At just 35 years old, gospel superstar Jonathan McReynolds has finally had one of the biggest mysteries about his life confirmed. But here's the twist. The truth didn't come from him. It came straight from his mother. Yes, the same Jonathan whose songs have inspired millions, whose voice has carried hope to broken hearts, is now at the center of a revelation so personal, so unexpected, that fans are struggling to process it. For years, whispers and questions have surrounded his private life. But no one imagined this would be the answer. Stay with me, because what his mother revealed doesn't just give us a glimpse into Jonathan McReynolds' world, it changes everything we thought we knew about the man behind the music. After years of quiet speculation, whispers in the gospel world, and fans desperately piecing together clues hidden in his music, the truth has finally come out, and not from Jonathan McReynolds himself, but from his own mother. This shocking confirmation doesn't just pull back the curtain on his private life, it redefines everything we thought we knew about Jonathan, his journey, his faith, and the hidden struggles he carried while building one of the most powerful careers in gospel music. But here's the question that has everyone talking. What exactly did she confirm, and why reveal it now? Jonathan McReynolds isn't just another gospel artist. At only 35 years old, he has become the voice of a generation, blending traditional gospel with soul-stirring modern sounds that have touched lives far beyond the church walls. His hits like Make Room and People didn't just climb the charts, they shook hearts, because Jonathan has always dared to be raw, real, and vulnerable. And now, with this revelation, fans are left stunned, questioning how much of his music was actually a confession all along. However, despite all of that transparency, his personal life has always been shrouded in suspicion. Fans have been asking questions for a long time. What is the true motivation behind Jonathan's lyrics? What difficulties has he encountered off stage? And why does he take such care to safeguard some aspects of his life? The answers were kept secret for many years. Jonathan refrained from allowing rumors or conjecture to influence his private life. But today, for the first time, his mother has come out to affirm what many people thought but were never able to prove. And everything is altered by this realization. We'll learn what Jonathan's mother disclosed, why this revelation is significant, and how it illuminates the man behind the music in today's video. The backstory, the emotional impact of his mother's remarks, and the potential repercussions for his legacy and career will all be discussed. And believe me when I say that this isn't just another gospel artist tale. It concerns family, faith, and the cost of integrity in a society that frequently demands perfection. So, stay with me, because you will discover aspects of Jonathan that most people were unaware of as we delve deeper into his path. Fame wasn't something Jonathan Caleb McReynolds was born with. His narrative starts in the south side of Chicago, when music was essential to survival rather than merely a pastime. Growing up in a home with only one parent, Jonathan's mother became his pillar of support. Most significantly, she believed in his gift even when he was unable to perceive it for himself. She also disciplined him and provided him with nurturing. Jonathan frequently talks about how his mother grounded him. She wasn't the type of mother who would force him to take center stage in order to get notoriety. Rather, she urged him to be loyal to himself and his beliefs. In many respects, Jonathan's career has been silently planned out by the woman we now know for this startling revelation about his life. Jonathan has promised from a young age. There was more to him than a mere choir boy. There was something about his voice. People stopped and listened because of the combination of conviction and vulnerability. By enrolling him in Whitney Young High School and then Columbia College, Chicago, where he studied music, his mother made sure he maintained his educational roots as well. Jonathan combined his church background with formal instruction to create a distinctive sound, in contrast to many gospel musicians who grew up solely via church. This is where things become fascinating though. Jonathan didn't seek notoriety. He was actually apprehensive about taking center stage. In 2012, his debut album, Life Music, was independently released. He never imagined that it would serve as the foundation for his career, and he recorded a large portion of it at home using basic equipment. But the industry noticed almost immediately. His music was more than merely catchy. They were intensely intimate, mirroring the inner struggles that so many individuals silently endure. Soon after, gospel legends started to recognize Jonathan for his songs. His authenticity was lauded by artists such as C.C. Winans and Kirk Franklin. He didn't write songs to win people over. He was writing for connection, healing, and confession, and that relationship was fruitful. He continued to stay loyal to his roots while winning accolades, receiving Grammy nominations, and performing on venues around the world. Jonathan's personal life was mostly concealed, even as his career took off. Jonathan remained silent about his romances, difficulties, and even controversies, in contrast to many other celebrities. His dating life, the inspiration for some of his lyrics, and the reasons he kept other things hidden were all topics of conjecture among fans. One person, however, was aware of the true story throughout. In her most recent revelation, his mother finally addressed queries that admirers had been posing for years. Here's the twist, though. There's more to Jonathan's ascent than just music or celebrity. It's about tenacity, selflessness, and a young man who attempted to maintain his authenticity despite bearing the burden of expectations. His experience lays the groundwork for comprehending the significance of his mother's comments today. As time goes on, we'll learn more about Jonathan's hardships, as well as the poignant moment his mother eventually spoke up. Fans were shocked by what she disclosed, and it might permanently alter your perception of Jonathan McReynolds. At first glance, Jonathan McReynolds' career appears to have been a steady ascent. It was simple to assume that everything in his life was ideal because of the accolades, the sold-out performances, the partnerships with gospel icons, and his status as the new face of gospel music. However, as we are all aware, the backstage activities frequently differ greatly from the onstage activities. We get hints of Jonathan's world through his songs. Listen to songs like People or Cycles more closely. These are confessions rather than merely artistic expressions. Jonathan discusses in Cycles the difficulties that recur in his life as though he is unable to break free from certain patterns. Additionally, he candidly acknowledges in People how draining it may be to live up to other people's expectations. Millions of people were moved by these songs because they were more than just well-executed performances. They were pleas for comprehension. However, many fans were unaware of the tremendous pressure Jonathan was under. He was under pressure from the church, the industry, and himself. Whether he intended to be or not, he was a role model since he was young, successful, and vocal about his beliefs. He was seen by many as a representation of power and purity, but he was still a 20-something man trying to make sense of his existence. Imagine being 23 years old, all of a sudden thrust into the spotlight, with everyone watching your every move. Fans demand you to be perfect, but they also want you to be open and honest. Everything you've worked for could be undone by one slip-up or error. Jonathan was under that type of pressure, and his mother witnessed everything as it happened. Jonathan battled his uncertainties behind closed doors. This was implied in interviews. For conventional gospel audiences, he frequently acknowledged that he didn't feel churchy enough. However, he was too secular for popular markets. He tried to establish a place where genuineness was more important than labels by existing in the middle. That compromise was his greatest strength and his biggest weakness. He frequently confided in his mother. She was aware of his uncertainties, his annoyances, and the burden he bore when he left the stage and fell silent. She saw the son who doubted if he was strong enough, whether his voice mattered in the long run, and whether he was good enough, while fans saw the polished, self-assured performer. There was a cost to this never-ending struggle. Jonathan's personal sorrows, doubts, and late-night talks with God gave rise to the very songs that inspired millions of people worldwide. This is where the significance of his mother's recent confirmation becomes even more profound. She was talking about more than just Jonathan's status as a gospel star. She referred to Jonathan as her son, the man who composed the music, and the one who had fought conflicts in secret that most people were unaware of. Furthermore, her decision to speak in public wasn't made at random, as you'll learn in the following section of this story. It was emotional, personal, and strategically timed. Here's the startling twist, though. Jonathan's difficulties are not the only explanation for what she disclosed. It might fundamentally alter how his songs are interpreted by fans in the future. The mother of Jonathan McReynolds kept quiet about her son's emotional experience for years. She saw as blogs penned articles, as followers conjectured online, and as interviewers cautiously skirted subjects that Jonathan himself would never completely address. However, nobody knew that she had secrets that only a mother could understand when she was alone. details that would finally come to light in a single heartfelt moment that left fans in utter disbelief. This wasn't your typical celebrity family get-together. It was not about making news or starting rumors. It was the story of a mother who felt the time had come to finally speak from her heart after years of silence. In a discussion that swiftly went viral on social media, Jonathan's mother disclosed information that followers had long wondered about but had never verified. As she acknowledged how hard it had been to watch her son bear so much burden, her voice faltered. She talked about the secret tears he shed, the late-night questions he struggled with, and the times he questioned his ability to go on. The emotion in her tone, however, was what was most noticeable. This was not practiced for cameras. It wasn't polished. It was honest, unvarnished, the kind of candor that could only come from a mother. She acknowledged that there were times in Jonathan's life when the demands of the outside world felt so overwhelming that he almost broke. Then the moment that took everyone by surprise arrived. She verified what people had been speculating about for years. Jonathan's troubles went beyond his artistic endeavors. They were intensely personal, stemming from struggles that influenced his music and his beliefs. It was difficult for Jonathan's mother to share this. She was constantly cautious about what the outside world saw and fiercely protective of her son. However, she opted for openness over silence at that very moment. She said, "People see the gift, but they don't always see the pain that created it," and that one line struck like a lightning strike. As soon as she spoke, fans started analyzing her statements and drawing connections between his life and his songs. The lyrics, which had before seemed like poetic observations, suddenly took on a more significant and intimate significance. Songs like Cycles, Loving Me, and Got to Have You sounded more like survival notes from someone who was having a hard time hanging on than like performances. However, this is the section that made folks unable to speak. Jonathan's mother refrained from expressing sympathy by disclosing this information. She posted it in an effort to raise awareness of the price of greatness. Her son's honesty wasn't stage managed, and she wanted the world to know that. It was forged in the furnace of actual suffering, actual conflicts, and actual fortitude. The floodgates were opened by the confession. Many fans applauded her for her bravery, while others expressed amazement and empathy. Her remarks were strong, but they also brought up fresh issues. Why now? Why would Jonathan decide to make such a private revelation at this point in his career? Even though her confession was heartfelt, it wasn't the whole tale, which is where the narrative takes yet another unexpected turn. There is an additional layer that clarifies why, after years of shielding Jonathan's mother felt obliged to speak up. And believe me, you'll be even more shocked after reading this. Fans were left thinking one thing when Jonathan McReynolds' mother finally spoke up. Why now? Why would she choose to make such a highly personal disclosure at this time, when Jonathan is at the height of his power? After decades of keeping her son's troubles inside the family circle and years of preserving his privacy? Time is the key to the solution, and the choice starts to make sense when you examine the situation. First, Jonathan's career has reached a turning point. He is no longer a youthful gospel music upstart at the age of 35. He is well known, well respected, and even influencing the upcoming generation of artists. He is now a leader and a voice that people turn to for insight and direction, rather than just being a singer. That change adds to the pressure, and his mother was aware that people needed to comprehend the man behind the microphone if they were to follow Jonathan. Her remarks provided background, demonstrating to followers that Jonathan's authority stems from his survival of hardships rather than from his flawlessness. Second, Jonathan's work wasn't the only factor in his mother's timing. It had to do with culture. Authenticity is more important than ever in the modern society. Viewers are fed up with flawless, unalterable photos. They seek truth, vulnerability, and realism. This yearning was already addressed in Jonathan's lyrics, but his mother's admission went one step further. It removed the final shred of mystery and revealed to them that the person behind the moving words is a real person who has experienced grief, just like them. This cultural moment was directly impacted by her discovery. The family dynamic is the third factor. Jonathan has consistently attributed his greatest supporter, his prayer warrior, and his anchor to his mother. It was not treachery for her to eventually come out in public. It was a loving gesture. She was aware that he was no longer benefiting from the stillness. Rather, it was generating conjecture and permitting rumors to spread unchecked. She took charge of the subject by being honest and reminding everyone that Jonathan's story is one of tenacity rather than controversy. However, few people were aware of another layer. In recent years, Jonathan has become more forthcoming. He has alluded to issues with identity, purpose, and the pressure of expectations in interviews. Although he hasn't mentioned anything in detail, the armor's flaws were visible. His mother's remarks appeared to support this candor, as though she were reiterating what he had begun to quietly disclose. However, this is the bit that makes fans nervous. She might have been preparing by confessing. Consider it. Jonathan's platform is larger than ever as he enters a new season. Could it be that before Jonathan shares more, his mother wanted his admirers to be prepared to see the full picture? Some people think her timing wasn't at all coincidental, that it was thoughtfully matched with Jonathan's future plans for both his ministry and his life. Therefore, even though her admission was startling, it wasn't a random one. It was strategic, sentimental, and intentional. However, the more important query still stands. What specifically did she confirm that astounded fans? What details of Jonathan's quest were ultimately revealed?